Class, our topic for today is deductions. Okay, this is another major topic under income taxation. So last meeting, we discussed gross income. So kung ano yung approach na ginamit natin for discussion of gross income, same approach gagamitin natin for deductions. Okay ba yan? Sige. So class, recall muna natin yung format natin in computing for the income tax due. Okay? We start with gross income, less allowable deductions, then we get the net taxable income. Okay? And then, to compute for the income tax due, well, depende yan. If you're an individual, you can use a tax table or 8%. Tama? If you're a corporation, you have the R-sheet or the M-sheet. So now class, last meeting, nag-focus tayo dito sa gross income. And we discussed yung inclusions and exclusions from gross income. Per item yung naging discussion natin. Ganun din gagawin natin for deductions. Now, kaya ginamit na word is allowable because hindi lahat ng expense pwede mo i-deduct for tax purposes. Okay? Unlike sa accounting, basta nag-qualify as expense, pwede mo i-deduct yun to get a net income. Tama? Sa taxation class, ibang-iba yung rules niya compared to what we know in accounting. Alright? So yun yung mga aralin natin for today. Now, deductions, we have two types. First one is the itemized deductions, and second one is the optional standard deduction or the OSD. Alright? Now, last, discuss muna natin yung general principles. Meaning, ito yung guidelines natin to know whether the expense or whether the item is deductible or not. Okay? Now, we have 6 principles. Number 1, for the expense to be deductible, it must be ordinary and necessary. Okay? Ordinary and necessary. For example, salaries expense. Well, kailangan natin ng employees sa business para mag-survive yung business. Okay? Therefore, magbabayad tayo ng salaries. Okay? That's ordinary and necessary. Another example, rent expense. Well, kailangan natin ng office para mag-survive yung business. Okay? Therefore, yung rent expense, yung bayad natin for the office, is ordinary and necessary. Gets? Okay, number 2. The expense must be paid or incurred, okay, during the taxable year. Okay? The expense must be paid or incurred during the taxable year. Tama ba class pag sabi mong paid, binayaran mo in cash, tama? Cash basis. Pag sinabi mo naman na incurred, accrual basis, tama? So, ibig sabihin, class, si BAR pala, for tax purposes, no, for expenses, gumagamit siya ng combination of cash basis and accrual basis. Does that make sense? Kasi nakalagay paid or incurred. So, even if hindi pa bayad, basta mag-qualify siya as expense, as deductible expense, pwede mo na i-deduct. Okay? So, again, whether cash or accrual basis, acceptable kay BAR yan. Number 3, okay, it must be connected with trade or business or exercise of profession. Okay, so class, dapat yung expense must be connected with trade or business or exercise of profession. For example, yung expense is a personal expense. So, nagpag-gas ka for personal use, hindi yung pwede. Kasi hindi naman related yun sa trade, business, or exercise of profession. Okay, for example, may mga household expenses ka, okay, ginamit para sa family mo, hindi pwedeng i-deduct yun. Dapat, again, yung expense is for the business. Alright? Okay, number 4. 6 lang ito class. Number 4 is, it must be supported by sufficient evidence. Okay? Must be supported by sufficient evidence. For example, class, dapat supported yan by receipts o kaya naman invoices or other records. Okay? Ayan, number 4. Well, kung walang sufficient evidence, pwede ka mag-optional standard deduction. Got it? Let's go to number 5. Number 5 is, the expense must be not against, okay, the law, morals, public policy, or public order. Okay? Now, for example, class, gumasos ka, nag-bribe ka, bribery, okay? Bribery o kaya kickbacks, o kaya may under the table ka kay BAR, hindi pwede mag-qualify as expense. Bakit, sir? Kasi nakalagay niya sa number 5, not against the law, morals, public policy, or public order. Okay? And then last one, class, is if subject to withholding tax, okay, such tax must have been withheld and paid to BIR. Okay? Withheld and paid to BIR. Okay, basahin natin. If subject to withholding tax, such tax must be withheld and paid to BIR. For example, class, rent. Okay, di ba rent expense? Di ba, napag-aralan natin last time, si landlord and tenant. So si tenant, yung ibabayad niya actually yung rent kay landlord is subject to 5% na EWT, expanded withholding tax. Tama? Ngayon kasi tenant, para maging deductible sa kanya as rent expense yun, dapat na withhold niya muna yung 5% kay BIR. Yun yung ibig sabihin niyan. If subject to withholding tax, such tax must have been withheld and paid to BIR. So si tenant, for example, nagbayad siya kay landlord, pero hindi pa niya na-withhold yung withholding tax kay BIR. Hindi niya pwedeng i-declare, hindi niya pwedeng i-deduct as expense yung rent expense na yun. Got it? Okay, so ito yung guiding principles natin. So again, class, if yung expense, mag-qualify siya sa 6 na yan, then sa ITR mo, pwede mo i-deduct yung as part of allowable deductions. Okay? So again, meron tayong itemized and OSD. Later, iisa-isahin natin yung itemized. Pero para mag-focus na tayo dyan, unahin muna natin yung OSD. Okay? OSD or Optional Standard Deduction, medyo na-discuss ko na ito last time, I think, under corporations. Okay? So medyo mas detailed yung gawin natin discussion today. OSD applies to resident citizen, non-resident citizen, okay, resident alien, what else? Domestic corporations, resident foreign corporations, GPPs, okay, and other entities on which rules for domestic corporations apply. Okay? Okay, basahin natin. OSD or the Optional Standard Deduction applies to resident citizen, non-resident citizen, resident alien, domestic corp, RFC, GPP, okay, and other entities on which rules for domestic corporations apply. So ano ibig sabihin mo sa other entities on which rules for domestic corporations apply? For example, class, yung taxable partnerships. Di ba? Taxable corporation yan. Ano ba? Taxable joint ventures. Parang domestic corp yun, right? Taxable co-ownership. O yun yung ibig sabihin yan. So yung class, yung mga yun, pwede sila mag-OSD. Okay? So as you notice here, not applicable to NRA, okay, and NRFC. Pag mga non-resident, okay, pag non-resident alien and non-resident foreign corporation, hindi applicable yung optional standard deduction, okay? Well, for NRFC and NRA, NETB, self-explanatory yan because they're taxed at gross income, so walang sense na may OSD sila. Okay, kasi in the first place, wala silang deductions. Got it? So ayan, so tandaan mo lang na OSD, hindi siya applicable to non-resident aliens and non-resident foreign corporations. Got it? Now, yung OSD class, again, pwede sa individuals and corporations. Tama? Differentiate natin yung dalawa. Pag individuals, syempre, ito yung exercise of profession or may business ka. Alright? So, pwede yung business mo is a trading, okay? Or manufacturing. Trading or hindi yung merchandising, in accounting, same lang na. Trading and merchandising, kamukha lang ibig sabihin nun. Or manufacturing. And then, pwede rin yung individuals, okay? Nagre-render ng service. Okay, so, kapag trading and manufacturing, yung computation ng OSD is 40% of gross sales. Right? Pag naman service, computation of OSD is 40% of gross revenues or receipts. Okay? Ayan. 40% of gross sales if trading or manufacturing. If services naman, 40% of gross revenues or receipts. Kapag naman corporation, computation natin OSD is 40% of gross income. Okay. So class, ito yung important dito. I don't know if na-mention ko na to last time, pero ito yung kailangan mo malaman dyan. Kapag cost of goods sold, okay, so cost of goods sold or cost of sales, kapag individual, okay, hindi siya deducted, not deducted, in computing the net taxable income, alright? Kapag naman corporation, deducted yan. Got it? Magkaiba kasi sila ng base, okay? So corporation, based sa gross income, and we know yung gross income, yun yung sales minus yung cost of sales, tama? Kaya deducted yung cost of sales. Pag naman individuals, since ang basis mo yung gross amount, yung gross sales or gross revenues or receipts, hindi mo na i-deduct yung cost of sales. Gets? So, hindi ko alam kung na-mention ko siya before, pero remember that. Marami nagkakamali dyan ng student, so keep that in mind. Okay, so para mas malinaw, let's have an illustration. So, gawa tayo ng 2 scenarios. Scenario number 1, what if trading or manufacturing yung client natin or yung taxpayer? And then scenario number 2, what if nagre-render ng service? Okay, for example, nagre-render ng legal services, may law firm. Okay, so ayan, 2 scenarios. What if corporation siya, yung taxpayer, and what if individual taxpayer? Okay, so let's compute for the net taxable income. Corporation, mag-assume tayo ng figures. Okay, so scenario number 1, let's say merong gross sales amounting to 10 million, okay, minus cost of goods sold or cost of sales, kunwari 4 million, we get the gross profit or the gross income, okay, that's 6 million. Since corporation siya class, that is 40% of gross income. Therefore, yung OSD natin is 40% of 6 million, that is 2.4 million. Therefore, our net taxable income is 3.6 million. Tama lang? Tama lang yan? So, if you're a corporation, again, i-deduct mo yung cost of goods sold. Okay? And then multiply natin by 40% sa gross income, or we know, yung gross profit, that's also gross income. Okay? Now, tignan natin class kapag individual naman, individual taxpayer, meron siyang business. Okay? So gross sales, same figures para comparable, 10 million. And then, diretso ka OSD. Optional standard deduction, 10 million times 40%, that is 4 million. Our net taxable income is 6 million. Okay, so very evident yung difference nila. So dito kasi individual, hindi mo na dineduct yung cost of sales. Gets? So dito, nagdeduct ka pa, dito hindi na. Right, so that's the big difference sa computation ng net taxable income or computation of optional standard deduction. As you notice class, mas mataas yung net taxable income kapag individual compared to a corporation kapag nag-OSD sila. Okay? Ayan, so mas mataas siya. Let's go to what if sir render ng service. Okay, exercise of profession. Kapag corporation yan, meron kang gross sales or gross revenues or receipts, yun yung term natin, tama? Let's say 5 million, okay? And then direct cost or cost of services, ito yung counterpart ng cost of sales. So, meron kang cost of sales for trading and manufacturing, meron kang cost of services for exercise of profession. Let's say this is 2 million, okay? And we have gross income, 3 million. We compute for the OSD, which is 40% of 3 million, that's 1.2 million. Our net taxable income is 1.8 million. Alright? Now, kapag naman individual, we have gross revenues or receipts. Gross revenues or receipts, that is 5 million. Okay? And then minus the optional standard deduction, 40% of 5 million is 2 million. We get 3 million. This is our net taxable income if you're an individual. Again, kapag individual ka, hindi mo din deduct yung cost of services. Alright, so as you notice here, kapag individual, 3 million yung net taxable income, kapag corporation, 1.8 million. So mas mataas yung net taxable income for individual using optional standard deduction. Okay, so yun lang yung kailangan mo tandaan for OSD. Okay na tayo dito, class? Tama? Okay na tayo dito. Pwede na tayo mag-focus sa itemized deductions. Alright, so class, for itemized deductions, open nyo yung G-sheets nyo. Okay? So you will see there, meron tayong bagong sheet dyan. Open nyo yung deductions. So ang nilagay ko dyan, class, actually nilagay ko na dyan yung mga yung pagkakasunod na i-discuss natin as well as yung requisites. Okay? So, gagawin natin, again, per item, parang gross income. And then, so yan. Sige, so let's start with sa itemized deductions natin. Itemized. Let's start with number 1, losses muna tayo. Okay, losses. Muna tayo sa G-sheet sa ating class. Tignan natin yung requisites. Okay, we have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 requisites for losses before mo siya may deduct, okay, for tax purposes. A, actually sustained during the taxable year. B, connected with trade, business, or profession. Letter C, evidence by a closed and completed transaction. Letter D, not compensated for by insurance or other form of indemnity. Not leave as a deduction for estate tax purposes. So next time, di-discuss natin yan pag nasa estate tax na tayo. And letter F, notice of loss must be filed with BAR within 45 days from the date of discovery. Okay. So class, for board exam, hindi mo kailangan i-memorize yung mga requisites na yan. Just be familiar with them, okay? Siguro kailangan mo lang i-memorize yung mga number of days. So in this case, notice of loss daw 45 days. Okay, so again class, sa board exam, tandaan nyo, hindi mo kailangan mag-memorize yan except for mga rates, okay? Mga number of days. Pero ako, honestly, class ako, no, ginawa ko lang dyan days before the board exam. Doon ko lang memorize kasi alam ko makakalimutan ko rin yan, di ba? So more of understanding and familiarity ng mga requisites, okay? And yung mga naka-bold na words dyan, yun lang yung mga tatandaan mo. Or at least be familiar with them. Okay, so class, take note na, ayan, number 1 natin is losses. Actually, under losses, meron tayong 3 types, okay? Letter A, meron tayong tinatawag na casualty loss. Okay, so casualty loss, class, this arises from, well, casualty, such as fire, okay, storm, ano pa, earthquake, pwede din mag-qualify yung theft, okay, nanakawan ka, embezzlement, ayan. So for example, class, may factory tayo, no? May factory tayo and then nagkaroon ng earthquake, nasira yung factory natin. Yung loss na na-incur natin for that factory, pwede mo i-record as loss yun. Pwede mo siyang i-deduct yun. Tama? Deductible siya. Yun yung ibig sabihin ng casualty loss. Alright? Now, that casualty loss must be reduced by insurance recovery. Okay? Insurance. Kasi class, yung mga, let's say, mga buildings na yan, most of them, sa mga offices, okay, mga companies, most of them naka-insure yan. Ang tawag na doon yung mga non-life insurance. Okay? Yun yung mga preparation for mga casualties. Ima-minus mo yun. So let's have 3 illustrations. Okay? Scenario number 1, what if meron total loss? Okay, ito yung mga given natin. For example, class, yung cost of the building is 4 million. Alright? And then, accumulated depreciation niya is 1 million. Obviously, yung book value natin is 3 million. Tama? And then, so yan muna. So, let's say nasira yung building natin. This is a building. So, scenario number 1, nasira yung building natin. Ano yung deductible loss natin? Well, yung loss natin is equal to book value, which is 3 million. Okay? Deductible loss mo for scenario 1 is simply 3 million. Scenario number 2, same given, except that total loss pa rin siya, okay? Except that meron tayong insurance, okay? Naka-insure, okay? May non-life insurance, okay? Let's say yung insurance recovery natin amounted to 2 million. Insurance recovery. So class, how much yung deductible loss natin na pwede natin ipan-deduct dun sa gross income natin? Okay? Answer dito class is the book value minus the insurance recovery. 1 million lang talaga yung deductible loss mo for scenario 2. Kaya sabi ko dito class, reduced by insurance recovery. Actually, para mas madali, pwede mo i-journal entry kasi mas naiintindihan natin kapag sa accounting natin inaaral, tama? So debit cash for the insurance recovery, 2 million. Cost natin is 4 million, tama? So credit natin yung building, 4 million. Accumulated depreciation is 1 million, so that's a debit. Tama? So 3 million yung debit, 4 million yung credit. So meron tayong loss dito na 1 million. Yun yung deductible loss mo. Okay? Loss of 1 million. So para di ka mahirapan, pwede mo i-journalize. Let's go to scenario number 3. Scenario number 3 class is partial loss. Sir, ano difference ng total loss and partial loss? Okay, yung total loss class, tanda mo, yung building natin, nasira na talaga. Hindi na natin magagamit. Alright? Pag sinabing partial loss, partly nasira, pwede pa natin i-restore. Okay? Scenarios 1 and 2, pag sinabing total loss, hindi na natin ma-restore to its original condition. Pag sinabing partial loss, pwede mo pang i-restore. Yun yung difference lang. Okay? So class, for example, yung cost to restore is 2.5 million. Ayan. And then book value, same, 3 million. And then yung insurance natin is 1 million. Ayan pa rin. Same given pa rin yung book value and insurance natin. Meron na tayong cost to restore na 2.5 million. According to the tax code, okay, ang pipiliin mo dyan class is cost to restore or the book value, whichever is lower. Alright? Whichever is lower, less the insurance, yun yung deductible loss mo. Okay? So ano yung lower natin? Lower natin is the cost to restore. Okay? Cost to restore, 2.5 million. Insurance recovery natin is 1 million. Therefore, ang deductible loss natin dito class is 1.5 million. Got it? So ulitin ko, ang rule kapag partial loss, cost to restore or book value, whichever is lower, okay, less the insurance, laging less the insurance kasi hindi mo naman talaga loss yung insurance kasi marireceive mo yung cash yan eh. Tama? Then yun yung deductible loss mo. Para matanda mo yung class, tanda mo na kung maalala mo yung first topic natin in taxation, general principles, yung deductions na yan, construed against the taxpayer. Ayaw ni BIR ng mga deductions. Okay? So kaya dito, whichever is lower, tingnan mo class, kapag ang rule mo is whichever is higher, edi 3 million yan, tama? Magiging 2 million yung loss mo. Kapag whichever is higher yung rule, mataas yung magiging deductible loss mo. Kaya ang rule is whichever is lower para mababa yung loss mo. Mas mataas yung tax pa sa point of view ni BIR. Okay? Ayan, so that's your casualty loss. Let's go to letter B. Okay, meron tayong NOLCO. Net operating loss, carry over. So kailangan ko ng mas may space pa dito. Taas natin ng konti. So casualty loss yung A. Letter B natin is NOLCO. Again, what do you mean by NOLCO? Net operating loss, carry over. Alright. So class, yung rule natin, or sir, kailan ba nangyayari yung NOLCO na yan? Whenever your allowable deductions exceed your gross income. Alright? Pero take note, yung gross income na pinag-aaralan natin dito, nire-refer natin dyan, is gross income na excluding those items na exempt from tax and excluding those items na subject to final withholding tax and capital gains tax. Remember? Alright, so, punta muna tayo sa G-sheets natin. Meron tayong requisites. Hindi basta-basta pwede mo i-deduct yung NOLCO. No? Meron tayong requisites. Dalawa. Letter A, at the time of incurring net loss, the taxpayer must not be exempt from income tax. Okay, letter B, there is no substantial change in the ownership of the business, in that not less than 75% of the shares, if the business is held by on behalf of the same persons, not less than 75% is held by Okay, so important na dito class, sa year doon na yun, dapat hindi ka exempt from tax, and also no substantial change in ownership. Pag sinabing substantial change, tatanda mo lang is the 75%. Okay? Now, if mag-qualify ka dyan, then pwede mo i-deduct yung NOLCO na yan. So class, sir, yung NOLCO ba, yan din ba yung net loss in accounting? Actually class, yung NOLCO, hindi siya equal to net loss sa accounting. Bakit sir? Kasi class, ganito yan. We have gross income minus the allowable deductions. You have the net loss. Okay? Yung gross income natin, meron tayong taxable and non-taxable. Tama? Non-taxable. Yung deductions natin class, meron tayong deductible and non-deductible. Okay? So for example, ano ba yung mga non-taxable na gross income natin? Non-taxable gross income, for example, yung mga income subject to well, yung pinag-uusapan, mga subject to final withholding tax or capital gains tax or exempt income. Meron din tayong mga expenses na non-deductible. So again, class, iba yung rules ni accounting, iba yung rules ni tax. Okay, so ang mangyari dyan, class, for example, meron lagay tayo ng figures. Kunyari, 2 million yung taxable gross income. This is 1 million. Okay? Deductible expense natin is 3 million. Non-deductible is 200,000. Kung kukumpitin natin, class, yung net loss, so 3 million, so that is 200,000. Tama? Ito yung net loss natin in accounting. Kasi sa accounting rules natin, wala naman tayong non-deductible or non-taxable gross income or non-deductible allowable deductions. So, wala naman ganun sa accounting. So, lahat ng income, lahat ng expenses, gagamitin natin yun to get the net income or net loss. Ngayon, class, kapag naman sa tax, so ito yung accounting, ito yung tax, tama? Sa tax, ang mahalaga lang sa atin, ito, and this one, tama? Therefore, yung NOLCO natin is 1 million. As you notice, iba yung net loss sa net operating loss carryover. Alright? Ang pinag-uusapan natin is the NOLCO na 1 million, hindi ito. Gets? Okay. Now, yung general rule natin, class, is, okay lang ba, erase ko na to? Okay. Yung general rule natin for NOLCO, remember this, pwede mo siyang i-carry over for 3 years. Kaya mo siya tinawag na carry over. Pwede mo siyang i-carry over for 3 years. So, lagyan natin ha, general rule can be carried over for 3 years. Okay? Actually, next 3 years following the year of net operating loss. Okay? 3 years in general rule. Now, class, mayroong exception dyan. Exception natin is under Bayanihan Act. Bayanihan Act 2. Alright? Remember this ha, bago to. Under Bayanihan Act 2, yung NOLCO incurred or sustained in 2020 and 2021, pwede mong i-carry over for 5 years. Yun. Okay, so general rule natin, yung NOLCO, pwede mo i-carry over for the next 3 years. Exception, kapag yung NOLCO nangyari siya noong 2020 and 2021. Ito lang ha. Kasi yun yung pandemic, tama? 2020 and 2021, pwede mo siyang i-carry over for 5 years. So, ingat ka sa year na given sa board exam. Okay? Very important yan. Tignan mo kung 2020 or 2021, 5 years yun. Otherwise, pag before 2020 or 2021 or after 2021, 3 years ka. Okay? Let's have an illustration. For example, this is year 1, year 2, year 3, okay, year 4, and year 5. Okay, so we have 5 years. For example, class, ito yung net loss natin. Net loss or net income or loss. Ito yung NOLCO natin, for example. Okay, meron kang 2 million sa year 1, negative. 1 million sa year 2. 500,000 negative. Net loss tayo ng year 3. 900,000 income ng year 4. And may income tayo ng 5 million in year 5. Okay, yan yung given natin. Now, sir, paano natin i-apply yung NOLCO na yan? Okay, so ang gagawin natin, class, yung NOLCO nung year 1, which is this one, 2 million, pwede mo i-carry over for the next 3 years. 1, 2, and 3. Kaya-carry over mo ba yan sa year 2? Hindi, kasi positive yun eh. Okay? So, hindi natin, sa year 2, so ito yung pinag-uusapan natin, year 1 na NOLCO, sa year 2, pwede mo i-carry over, pero may limit yan. Okay? Since 2 million yung pwede mo i-carry over, ang maximum na pwede mo i-carry over for year 2 is only 1 million. Kasi yung income niya is only 1 million. Got it? So, it means, carry over dito, 1 million. Alright? And then, year 3, negative 500,000. Okay? NOLCO na naman yan. Tama? May NOLCO ka dito, may NOLCO ka dyan. Got it? And then year 4, meron kang positive 900,000. Plus, meron ka pa bang pwedeng i-carry over from NOLCO mo ng year 1? Okay, 2 million, na-carry over mo yung 1 million, meron ka pang 1 million. Pwede mo pa ba i-carry over sa year 4? Yes, kasi 3 years. Ang bilang mo, next year, 1, 2, and 3. Okay? So, pwede ka mag-carry over dito. Hindi ko na nandyan. 900,000. Okay? This is from NOLCO year 1. Yung difference, 2 million minus 1 million, that's 1 million minus 900,000, 100,000, expired na yun. Okay? Kasi tapos na yung 3 years. Got it? Ngayon, yung NOLCO ng year 2, NOLCO ng year 3, this one. Hanggang kailan mo siya pwedeng i-carry over? 4, 5, and 6. Hanggang year 6. Okay? Sa year 4 ba, may carry over mo siya? Well, hindi na kailangan kasi 0 na yung income dito sa year 4. Sa year 5 pwede. Okay? So, 500,000, carry over mo siya, you have 500,000 here. Alright? So, if we compute the net taxable income, nung year 1, 0. Okay, kasi negative so 0 yan. Nung year 2, 0. Year 3, 0. Year 4, 0. And year 5, 4.5 million. Okay, so, makikita nyo dito, class, no? Ang lesson natin dito, sa illustration natin yan, for each NOLCO, meron siyang sariling 3 years. Okay, independent mo yan i-analyze. Si year 1, independent siya sa NOLCO ng year 3. May kanya-kanya silang 3-year period. Okay, so ulitin ko, si year 1, NOLCO na 2 million, na-carry over mo yung 1 million dito, 900,000 na carry over mo, yung natitira na 100, expired na yun because tapos na yung 3 years. Si year 3 naman, na 500,000, may sarili siyang bilang. 1, 2, and 3 hanggang year 6 siya. Okay? Na-carry over mo na dito yung 500,000, so wala na, naubos na yung nolko mo sa year 3. Got it? Ito yung general rule natin. Now, again, tignan mo sa board exam, yung years. Pag 2020 and 2021, yung bilang mo naman 5 years. 5 years following the year na nag-incur ka ng loss, ha? Hindi yung bibilangin yung current year. For example, year 1. Ang bilang mo is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hanggang year 6. Gets? Okay. So, sorry, medyo mabagal yung discussion natin yan. So, gusto ko kasi maintindihan nyo talaga yung per item na yan. Okay? Pero mabilis naman yung pagsagot natin ng handouts. Alright? So, let's go to... Saan tayo? Actually, tatlo yung losses. No? So, nakadalawa na tayo. We have the casualty loss, we have the NOLCO, and other losses. Others? Okay? So, meron tayong others. Number 1 is losses from ordinary assets. Okay, from ordinary assets, di-discuss natin to next time. Actually, yun na yata yung next topic natin after deductions. We'll discuss, I believe, yung capital assets. So, yung ordinary losses na yung class, it pertains to yung losses from ordinary assets. Ayan. May dalawang klase yan, di ba? Meron yung capital assets and we have ordinary assets. So, next meeting, i-discuss natin yan. But basically, yung gains and losses from ordinary assets, pupunta ng ITR natin yan. Deductible yung mga yan. Gets? Next meeting na yan, expound natin yan. Number 2. Wagering losses. Plus, pag sinabing wagering losses, ano ba ibig sabihin ng wager? Di ba? Sugal yun. Gambling, tama? Pag gambling losses or wagering losses, ang rule natin dyan is deductible only up to the extent of gains or winnings. Okay. Gains or winnings. So, ibig sabihin class, yung maximum loss na pwede mo i-deduct kapag related sa gambling is up to the extent of gains or winnings lang. Okay? Hindi pwede sumobra doon. Yun yung limit mo. Right? And then last one class is losses on wash sales of stocks. Sir, ano ibig sabihin ng losses on wash sales? Pag sinabing wash sales, okay, actually this is an artificial loss. Artificial loss. I'll give you an illustration. Okay, for example class, ayan, nagbenta ka ng shares dito. Right? Nagbenta ka ng shares. And then this is 30 days. 30 days. Okay, tama ba class yung buo na yan? 61 days yan. Tama? 61 days. So 30 days before the sale, 30 days after the sale. Okay, sabi sa tax code, ito yung rule. Tanda mo to. Yung rule natin is, losses on wash sales, okay, are not deductible. Except, dealer ka. Okay? Except ikaw, yun yung main business mo, trade ka ng shares, okay, main line of business mo, pwede i-deduct yan. Pag hindi ka dealer or hindi ka trader, not deductible yan. Sir, ano ba ibig sabihin ng wash sales na yan? Ibig sabihin yan, class, nagbenta ka dito, nagkaroon ka ng loss. Okay? Binenta mo sa mababang price, so may loss ka. Okay? Pero pag bumili ka ng securities, okay, na identical securities, pag bumili ka dito, identical shares, identical securities, 30 days before, or 30 days after, okay, pag bumili ka ng identical securities, hindi deductible yung loss mo. Alright? Ulitin ko. Yung wash sales natin, ang general rule natin dyan class is not deductible. Sir, paano ba ma-consider as wash sales? If 30 days before the sale or 30 days after the sale, bumili ka ng identical securities, okay, yung binenta mo dito na nagka-loss ka, hindi mo siya pwedeng i-deduct. Hindi siya deductible. Got it? So, ang bilang dyan, 61 days. Tama ba? Kasi 30 days before, 30 days after. So, 61 days yun. Got it? Okay, so rule natin for wash sales, not deductible except dealer ka or trader ka. Yun yung business mo talaga. Okay, so that's your losses. Sige, so let's go to next item. Next item natin class is about charitable and other contributions. Number ano ba to? I think number 2 pa lang to. Okay? Charitable and other contributions. So basically class, ito yung mga donations. No? Tingnan natin yung mga requisites dito. So let's go to our G-sheets. Okay, requisites natin class. A, the contribution or gift must be actually paid. Okay, take note, actually paid. So, hindi pwedeng accrual yan. Okay? So, charitable and other contributions, pag promise pa lang, hindi, dapat talagang na-contribute mo na. Okay? B, it must be given to organizations specified in the code. So, later, meron tayong naka-itemized yan. Letter C, the net income of the institution must not inure to the benefit of any private stockholder or individual. The donee must be a domestic institution and the donee must issue a certificate of donation. Kailangan i-secure mo kay BIR yan. Yan, BIR form 2322. Before mo i-deduct yung charitable and other contributions. So class, ito yung tatandaan mo dyan. The charitable and other contributions, or basically the donations, may 2 types yan for tax purposes. Meron tayong deductible in full, ibig sabihin, 100% pwede mong i-deduct, okay? Lahat ng contribution mo. Or, meron tayong subject to limitations. Alright? Now, sir, paano natin malalaman kung deductible in full or subject to limitations? Tignan natin yung list natin dito, class. So, may list dyan. Ayan. Fully deductible. Number 1, donations to the Philippine government or any of its agencies or political subdivisions or any fully owned government corporation to be used exclusively in undertaking priority activities, education, health, youth and sports development, human settlement, science and culture, economic development. Number 1, class, ang pinaka-important dyan is dapat under siya sa priority activities. Okay? So, yung priority activities, class, ang nagde-decide niyan, okay, or nagde-determine yan is the NEDA. Okay? Yung NEDA, okay, nagde-decide niyan. Ngayon, usually sinasabi naman sa problem yan. Okay, nag-contribute for priority activity. Pag priority activity, tandaan mo, deductible in full. Okay? Number 2, donation to foreign institution or international organization in pursuance or in compliance with agreements, treaties, or special laws. So, lagay natin dito, class, international organization. Mga keywords na lang. Okay? International organizations, pero take note, dapat in compliance with agreements, treaties, or special laws. So, dapat meron tayong agreement or treaties with another country. Okay? Before siya maging deductible in full. Number 3, donations to accredited domestic NGOs. Okay? Lagyan natin dito, accredited NGOs. Ayan. Nakalagay dyan, class, may requisites tayo. The NGO must be accredited donee institution with certification issued by the following accrediting agencies. Okay? Yung pagdodonate natin or the donee must be accredited. Dapat accredited sila by the following. By the SWD, DOST, PSC, NCAA, or CHED. Okay? So, dapat accredited yung NGO na yan. Got it? And then ito pa yung ibang requisites. The NGO must be organized and operated exclusively for the above purposes. No income inures to the benefit of any private individuals. Number 3, the NGO makes utilization of the contribution not later than 15th day of the 3rd month after the close of its taxable year. The administrative expenses of the NGO do not exceed 30% of its actual expenses. Take note of that. Very important, yung 30% na yan. The members of the Board of Trustees must not receive remunerations. In the event of liquidation, the asset of the NGO will be distributed to another non-profit domestic corporation organized for similar purpose. So basically, class, dapat hindi nagbe-benefit yung private individuals. Okay? Dapat nagbe-benefit kung sino yung mga beneficiaries of the NGOs. Right? So ulitin ko, meron tayong number 3, accredited NGOs. And number 4, class, ito mga special laws. Okay? May mga minention sa ibang laws na, okay, pag nag-contribute ka dito, fully deductible yan. So lagay natin dito, class, special laws. Let's read. Integrated Bar of the Philippines, International Rice Research Institute, Development Academy, University of the Philippines and other state colleges, CCP, Artesian Well Fund, Ramon Magsaysay Task Force, donations to National Museum, okay, National Commission on Culture, Humanitarian Science Foundation, National Social Action Council. Okay, sir, kailangan ba namin memorize yan? Hindi. Okay, ako hindi ko ma-memorize yan. Okay? So, tandaan mo lang, okay, so may mga special laws pala na pag nag-contribute ka sa entities na yan, deductible in full. Okay? So, ang dami sinabi, ang dami natin binasa. To summarize, okay, deductible in full yan or 100%. Ibig sabihin, lahat ng kinontribute natin, yung whole amount, deductible in full. If yung under priority activities, ang nagdedetermine is the NEDA, international organization, dapat may treaty tayo, accredited NGOs, accredited by the government agencies, and may mga special laws. Pag nag-qualify yan, kahit isa dyan, yun, deductible in full. Alright? Yung second type natin in class na contribution or donation is subject to limitations. Alright? Sir, how much yung limitations na yan? Depende. Kapag individual yung nag-donate, si donor, pag individual, 10%. Pag corporation naman, yung limitation natin is 5%. Sir, ano yung basis ng 10% and 5%? Okay? 10% or 5% of net taxable income before, okay, deducting contributions. Before deducting contributions. Tandaan mo, before babox ko para hindi mo makalimutan. Ayan. Meron tayong mga donations na subject to limitations. Pag individuals, 10%. Okay? Pag corporations, mas mababa yung limitation natin. Yung computation yan is net taxable income before deducting contributions. Sir, ano yung mga donation na subject to limitations? Let's go to our G sheets. Subject to limit, number 1. Donations to the Philippine government or political subdivisions exclusively for public purposes not in accordance with priority activities. So, ibig sabihin, class, pag non-priority activities, may limitation yan. Okay? What else? Donation to non-accredited NGO, okay? Exclusively for the following purposes. Non-accredited NGO. Yun. Okay, so religious, charitable, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so ibig sabihin, class, kapag nag-donate ka na non-priority, opposite nito, limitation yan. Pag nag-donate ka, opposite nito, okay, pag hindi accredited, limitation ka. 10% for individuals, 5% for corporations. Gets? Alright, so meron tayong exercises later, i-apply natin yan. Let's go to number 3. Number 3 is about pension. Okay. Pension, sir, parang familiar yung pension ah. Well, na-discuss natin yan actually in gross income. Pero sa gross income, yung pension na pinag-uusapan natin doon, yung na-receive ni employee. Okay? Point of view ni employee. Okay? Number 3. Sige nga class, ano yung naalala nyo sa pension? Sa retirement, di ba, retirement pay? Pag retirement, meron tayong requisites, 3, di ba? Sa point of view ni employee, hindi siya taxable if at least 50 years old. Ano pa? Nag-stay siya 10 years, same employer, and availed only once, or for the first time. Okay? So, 3 requisites. Point of view ni employee, yun. Ang pinag-uusapan natin ngayon is point of view ni employer. Okay? Siyempre, siya nagbabayad eh. So, tingnan natin kung paano siya magiging deductible expense. Right? Now, tingin tayo sa G-sheets natin. Okay, may requisites dyan. Letter A, the employer must have established a pension or retirement plan to provide for the payment of reasonable pensions to his employees. B, the actuarial assumptions must be sound and reasonable. It must be funded by the employer. The fund assets must be independent, okay, and not subject to the control disposal of the employer. Contribution for current service costs is deductible in full. Contribution for past service costs is amortized over a period of 10 years. Okay. So ito yung requisite kapag may pag-funded yung pension. Okay, so ito yung tatandaan mo dyan class. Dalawang klase kasi yung pension. Meron tayong tinatawag na not funded or funded. Alright? Pag not funded class, yung bayad ni employer kay employee, pag magre-retire na si employee, is out of pocket. Okay? Ibig sabihin, sariling bayad ni employer yan. Okay? No third party involved. No third party. Unlike kapag funded, meron tayo class tinatawag na pension trust. Okay? Pension trust, basically, yun yung mga insurance companies, no? Most of them, insurance companies. So, meron silang mga services wherein magko-contribute ka sa pension trust. And then, di ba, naalala nyo sa, actually, yan, sa IAS 19, naalala nyo yan, sa FAR, okay? Di ba, meron doon na defined benefit contribution, tama ba? Okay, and then meron tayong defined benefit plan. Yun. Pag defined benefit plan, ito, sa pension trust yun. Okay. Actually, both yata yan, defined benefit contribution. Nagko-contribute ka sa pension fund or sa pension trust. And then yung pension trust na yun, siya na yung bahala dun sa mag-manage nun. Tama? Kaya tayo may mga tinatawag na actuarial assumptions, blah, blah, blah. So, alam nyo na yan in FAR. Okay. Ngayon, pag-usapan natin for tax purposes. Pag hindi funded, pag walang pension trust, okay, ibig sabihin, sariling pera ng employer yung ibabayad, okay, upon retirement, tignan natin how much yung deductible. Yung deductible dito, class, is actual amount paid. Actual amount paid. Ito ko, actual amount paid. Ayan. Deductible pa rin upon retirement. So, kung magkano yung binayad ni employer to the retiring employee, okay, upon retirement, example, binayaran siya 1 million. Okay, 1 million yun, deductible expense kay employer yun. Got it? Now, kapag funded or may involved na pension trust, depende yung class. Tignan mo muna yung current service cost and past service cost. Okay? Yung current service cost, kung naalala niyo pa yun sa FAR, di ba yun yung for every year of service na employee, iyan yung nadadagdag sa bayad sa kanya in the future pag nag-retire siya. Tama? Past service cost naman class, iyan na yung services na na-render na before. For example, meron tayong, let's say this is a year 1, this is year 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 9, 10, okay? 2, 3, 4, ayan, 10 years. For example, class, si employer, dito siya nag-introduce ng pension trust. Diyan lang, okay? After 5 years of operations, doon pa lang siya nag-contribute sa pension trust. Ang tawag dito, class, sa years 1 to 5, okay? Past service cost yan. Yun yung mga employees na nag-render na ng services before introduction of the pension plan. Alright? Ngayon, for each year, na magre-render siya ng service, moving forward, ang tawag natin doon is current service cost. Ulitin ko, ito yung past service cost, moving forward, current service cost. Okay? Sabi sa tax code, pag current service cost, i-deduct mo siya in full. Okay? 100%. Alright? Pag past service cost, i-divide natin by 10. Divide by 10. Alright? Divide by 10. For example, class, yung past service cost natin is 200,000. Current service cost natin is 80,000 per year. Okay? So, how much yung deductible na tax? How much yung deductions natin for each year, okay? So, yung current service cost, deductible in full, 80,000. Yung past service cost, i-divide natin by 10. 200,000 divided by 10, that's 20,000. Ibig sabihin, yung deductible pension natin is 100,000. Okay, actually, class, yung 10 years na to, consistent yan sa old IAS 19, okay? Siguro mga time ni Attorney J, yan, matagal na panahon na, okay? Applicable yan. Kasi ganyan yung treatment. Naalala niyo ba ngayon kasi ang treatment sa revised IAS 19, yung past service cost, 100% recognition na yan. Dati kasi dinidivide by 10. Ang tawag yata doon corridor approach. I don't know if naabutan yan, pero consistent yan sa corridor approach. Ulitin ko, pag not funded, 100% kung how much yung binayad mo. Pag funded, may dalawang components. Current service cost, 100%. Past service cost, amortized over 10 years. Okay, or divided by 10 years. Okay, that's number 3. Okay, yung iba class, may clean na lang, don't worry. Okay, let's go to number 4. Let's go to number 4, class. This is about research and development cost. Research and development cost. Okay, R&D. So, familiar kayo dyan, yung, well, IAS 38, no? Intangible assets. Nakala nyo yan? Okay, now, tignan natin class yung requisites. Requisites, dalawa lang. Paid or incurred during the taxable year. Okay? Ordinary and necessary in connection with trade or business. Okay. Now, pag sinabi mong research, it is the discovery of new knowledge. Discovery of new knowledge. Okay? Pag sinabi mo naman development, well, ito na yung application of research. Actually, dun sa IAS 38, no, if naalala nyo yung discussion nyo sa form, medyo strict yung requirements yan, di ba? Kung expense or capitalizable ba yan? Yung development cost, merong strict requirements yan before mo siya pwedeng i-capitalize. Tama? Ngayon, for tax purposes class, ganito lang tatandaan mo dyan. May 2 types of expenditures tayo. Meron tayong expenditures, okay? R&D expenditures na capitalizable. For example, equipment or building. Yun yung ginagamit na, nagpatayo tayo ng building, o bumili tayo ng equipment for research and development purposes. Kapag ganyang class, we capitalize and depreciate or amortize. Okay? So yung in-spend mo for the equipment and building, for R&D purposes, ika-capitalize mo, yung depreciation of that building or equipment, yun yung making deduction mo. Gets? Okay. Ngayon class, may another type of R&D. Lagyan natin others. Basta hindi siya PPE, pag hindi siya depreciable PPE, such as equipment and building, for example, supplies. Okay? And other costs. Pag ganyang class, merong option si taxpayer. Ito, tandaan nyo to. Yung option ni taxpayer, pwedeng outright deduction. Ibig sabihin ng outright deduction, 100%. For that year, pwede niya na agad i-deduct. Okay, one-time deduction. Or, pwedeng amortize over a period. Okay, write this down. Over a period of not less than 60 months. Okay, so take note not less than 60 months. Ibig sabihin, less than or equal, hindi pala. Okay, so ganyan. Tama? More than or equal to 60 months. So not less than 60 months. So dapat ganyan siya. So ibig sabihin class, yung rule nito is higher of 60 months or number of years to benefit. Okay? For example, class, nag-spend ka ng cost, no? R&D cost. And then yung R&D na mag-benefit ka for 10 years, for example lang. So ang mangyayari doon class, 10 years or 60 months, whichever is longer. Yun yung magiging rule natin, or higher or longer. Alright? So ganun siya. Hindi shorter, okay? Higher or longer between the two. Tama? Kasi ang wording sa tax code is not less than. Okay? Hindi not more than, not less than 60 months. Ulitin ko, dalawang klase yung R&D cost. Pag capitalizable, capitalize and depreciate. Sir, paano namin malaman kung capitalizable? Basta related sa depreciable PPE. Okay? Kapag hindi naman ganun, may option ka, outright deduction, 100% deduction, or amortize mo sa longer between yung useful life, tawag natin useful life, or 60 months, whichever is longer. Okay? Ayan. That's R&D, and then let's go to taxes. Next is taxes. Alright. Actually, taxes madali lang. Ito lang siya. Taxes, ang general rule natin is, general rule, okay, so write this down, tax paid or incurred within the taxable year, okay, within the taxable year, are deductible. Ayan. So, ang general rule natin, deductible yan. Basta connected sa business, exercise sa profession, deductible yan. Nilista ko na dito, class, yung mga taxes na non-deductible and deductible. Alright? So, ito medyo familiarize yourselves, no? So, I think mas madaling maging familiar dun sa non-deductible taxes. So, basta wala siya sa non-deductible taxes, nandun siya sa deductible. Gets? Okay. So, basahin natin, class. Non-deductible, meron kang Philippine income tax paid to a foreign country if claimed as credit. Dalawa kasi yan, alala nyo yan? Kapag nagbayad ka abroad and resident citizen ka or domestic corporation, kasi taxable sila globally, may dalawa silang options. Pwedeng, yung binayad mong abroad, pwede mong i-claim as tax credit here in the Philippines or pwede siyang maging part of your allowable deductions. Got it? So sabi dyan, kapag liname as credit, obviously hindi na siya pwedeng part of your deductions. Estate tax, donor's tax, special assessment, VAT, stock transactions tax, interest, surcharges, penalties, final taxes. Yung mga yung class, non-deductible yan. Okay? Hindi mo sila ilalagay sa allowable deductions. Ito naman yung deductible. Examples. Foreign tax claim as deduction, percentage tax, excise tax, DST, fringe benefits tax, local taxes, community tax, municipal tax. Actually, class, lahat yan, i-discuss natin dito sa income tax, sa taxation. Okay? I think sa scope ng second pre-boards natin, discuss natin yung percentage tax, excise, DST, okay, local taxes, and so on and so forth. Okay? Familiarize yourselves, deductible taxes and non-deductible taxes. Alright, so, let's go to number 6. So, number 6 tayo. We have interest expense. Okay, interest. Tignan natin class yung requisites natin. Requisites, we have 5. Okay? A, there must be indebtedness. B, the interest expense must have been paid or incurred. So, pwedeng a cash basis or accrual basis. The indebtedness must be of that of the taxpayer. Okay? For example, ang ginawa, meron kang, may friend ka, binayaran mo yung utang niya, yung interest. Hindi pwede yun. Dapat ikaw yung indebted. Okay? Yun yung ibig sabihin ng letters niyan. The indebtedness must be that of the taxpayer. The indebtedness must be connected with trade or business. There must be legal liability to pay interest. Alright class, so ito yung matatandaan mo dyan. Actually, may bago dito, no? So now, yung limit is 20% of interest income. Okay? Plus, ito yung non-deductible interest expense. Okay? Sir, bakit sabi mo bago? Because previously, ito yung under create. Okay? Under create, 20% na. Okay? Under train law kasi, 33%. I think pinakita ko na to last time. Sa train law, ang computation 33% is yung RSIT na 30% minus yung final withholding tax over 30%. Yun yung 33%. Okay? Under create naman, kaya naging 20% na lang ngayong class kasi naiba na yung RSIT natin. Tama? 25% minus 20% over 25%, you have 20%. Tanda mo, ang non-deductible interest expense is 20% of interest income. Okay? For example, okay, example natin is interest expense, 100,000. Okay, interest income natin class is 40,000. Alright? So, how much yung deductible interest expense natin? Ganito gagawin mo dyan. Meron kang interest expense na 100,000 less non-deductible interest expense. Let's say class yung interest income natin naka-net yan o final withholding tax. Let's say net na nakalagay sa problem. Ang gagawin ko dyan, i-gross up ko muna yung 40,000. 40,000 divide ko by 80%, i-gross up ko muna siya, and then multiply ko by 20%. Okay, so ako na mag-compute. This is 10,000. Yung makukuha mo class, yun yung non-deductible interest expense. Ingat ka, hindi yun yung deductible interest expense. Yun yung non-deductible. That's why, actual interest expense, so 100, minus non-deductible, you have 90,000. Ito yung deductible interest expense mo. Okay? Gets? Pero obviously, kapag silent yung problem, assume mo na naka-gross yung interest income. Okay? Pag silent. Let's say nakalagay net. Okay? Pag net nakalagay, i-gross up mo muna siya. Alright, so, as you notice here class, yung computation natin, depende sa RSIT. Tama? Yung train, 30%, yung create, 25%. May exception dyan. Exception natin class, sa rule natin, is if the taxpayer is a MSME. Micro, Small, Medium Enterprise. Okay? Ano nga ba yung MSME? Di ba may threshold tayo dyan? Alala mo yung total assets, excluding land, 100 million, and net taxable income, 5 million. Alala mo yan? Pag MSME ka, exempted ka dito. Walang limit. Okay? Ibig sabihin, yung deductible mo, deductible interest expense mo, is equal to your actual interest expense. Right? Bakit, sir? Kasi class, following this formula, di ba, pag MSME, yung RSIT mo is 20%. So, ang mangyayari doon, 20% minus 20% over 20%. That's why 0% yan. So, basically, wala kang limit. Ulitin ko, pag MSME, wala kang limit. Kung how much yung actual interest na binayad mo or na-incur mo, yun yung deductible interest expense. Alright. So, before we move on, let's have a short break muna, class.